How would you assess your defense's performance from week one?
I think they played really hard. We threw on the film, and I was impressed with the guys running to the football and getting after the ball carrier. I thought the communication was pretty good. It could be better. I thought the tackling was good. It could be better. Overall, it was a clean game with the exception of a couple plays. I'd like to do a little bit better job in some areas with some key and diagnose, and I want to see us keep the quarterback in the pocket. But I felt like it was a good outing, and kind of our goal for this week is to go execute the game plan better this week than we did last week. So
What makes
Joe,
it challenging when you only have 33 plays to look at and review?
you kind of got cut off. What was the first part of that?
I said, what is the challenge when you only have 33 plays to review and maybe not knowing exactly fully what you have, just given the small sample size?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see it as a negative. Our goal is to play the least amount of plays as possible defensively, because that means we're getting the ball back for the offense, and then that means they're controlling the ball. But for us, we've got a body of work from spring ball. We've got scrimmages. We've got fall training camp. We've got a couple scrimmages in training camp. We got a sample size of 33 plays. We'll get more this week, and it's a constant evaluation of our people based on what we're seeing in practice, what we're seeing in scrimmages. So I view it as a positive because now there will be some games this year where we're going to play a lot of snaps. That's just a reality of college football. But overall, by and large, we want to keep that down to a minimum.
Joe, you're facing an FCS team that you haven't played before. What challenges does that present?
Anytime you play an opponent you haven't played before, there's a challenge to it, especially when there's a new head coach. He's moved. He's had a tremendous amount of success at the place he was before, and they bring in a new offense, and that offense gets tweaked a little bit just because they have different people there. They were a lot of two back and doing things at that school prior to the staff before, and now it's more of the 12 personnel world, 11 personnel. So there's always a little bit of that unknown with the people that you're seeing and having to defend. So that always creates a little bit of a challenge. And then the main challenge is, like I touched on, going out and executing the game plan better than we did last week. Our goal, and you guys who've been around this program for a while, we want to get better every week defensively as a football program. And so there's a race to get to our best, and we'll never get there, but we're always, working to get there. So this week is just the next step in that process.
What did you see in Jalen Logan Redding in his first start, and what did he show in camp to earn that start?
Yeah, I think he's been pretty consistent throughout training camp and through spring ball. I think he brings a physicality to the game. He does a good job setting edges. I think he plays really hard. And anytime you've got a guy that's got some length, plays hard, has some physicality, I think that brings some really good things to the defense. On third down, we shuffled some guys in and out. I think overall you saw up front we played 9, 10, 11 guys just in general. So, each week it might not be to that level, but we're a rotational type group. We believe in playing a lot of guys up front. We believe that we'll be fresh in the fourth quarter because we play a lot of guys. So he's a halfer. We use that term around here. He plays really hard. And that's something that we respect, and we need him to continue to bring to the table.
What have you saw from Danny Strigal and Gage Keys as they both continue developing?
Yeah, so Danny was a guy that, I just love his progression since he's got here. Obviously, he's a state champion in wrestling, and some people would say, hey, maybe that was his number one sport, but he loved football, and that's one thing we loved about him. And he had length, and he was tough, and he was physical, and he was blue collar. And he came in, he was on the scout team his first year, and kind of developed, and got a little bit better each week. And then last year, we saw him, make some improvements. And then when you got to spring ball, to me, there was a huge jump this year going into that next year. And he brings a physicality and a toughness to it. He's developing as a pass rusher. He had a sack, which was really a great technical play, fundamental play, discipline play. He's a smart player. He plays really hard. He's just one of our guys. Like, we value those guys. Those are the guys that we play really good defense with when we have a bunch of those guys who are fulfilling those roles. And he's done a good job there. And then who was the second person you asked about?
Gage Keys.
Gage. Yeah, Gage, we have a different body types at 3 technique, which I love. You got a guy like Trill Carter, who's a little shorter, a little more stout. And then you got a guy like Gage who's longer, maybe doesn't weigh as much, but maybe has an initial burst off the ball that's a little bit better. So, Gage brings some pass rush. He brings some length. He brings some, penetration in terms of being able to get off the ball. So I think he's got a really bright upside. We've been pleased with the development that he's made, and I think he's got a chance to be a really good football player for us.
Do you see any attributes in high school wrestlers to make good defenders? I mean, obviously, probably different positions, different attributes. But what do you see in a wrestler that makes him a good football player potentially?
Number one, toughness, and that's not necessarily something you quantify, but trust me, wrestlers are pretty tough. If to live that life, and my brother lived that life, like those guys are tough people. They work really hard. They're generally blue collar people. Like it's a low ego sport. Like this is like, hey, you win the wrestle off, you're the starter. You don't, you're not. There's really not many places to go about, hey, the coach isn't playing me. Like just wrestling, that mentality you love, that translates to all sports. It translates to life. I think the ability to bend is something that you see with wrestlers. They're able to bend. They use their hands well. They're usually good in close quarters. We joke with Danny a lot. A lot of times he'll go with low tackles, and I always say, hey, you're going to shoot for the double leg takedown, which he's pretty good at. So, and for us, when we were making decisions, Danny was a guy we evaluated at camp. He came in and he had a really good workout for us at camp. But the one thing we said, hey, with all we knew about him physically, and then you added he's a great person, great character, and then that wrestling background, that was really a no-brainer for us. And he's really, growing into what we knew he could be. So, and he needs to continue to get better because we need him to be a really good football player for us.
What are the challenges of a passing offense that takes as many deep shots as what Western Illinois did last week?
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is at any moment they can create an explosive play. Even when you feel like, hey, we've got a good play, we've got a good play, we've got a good play. Well, one could go up over your head. All of a sudden, it's a 35-yard gain, and now the field position's flipped, and they're in position to score. So there's got to be a discipline in the coverage. There's got to be a discipline with the eyes. There's got to be a discipline in the rush because a lot of those deep balls that you talked about were scrambles that were thrown vertically down the field. So 18's a really good receiver. He's got length. He's got ball skills. He's got soft hands. He goes up to get it. So I was impressed with both quarterbacks, their receiving core. So those explosive plays down the field are concerns for us.
Speaking of explosive plays, was it just Beanie needing to locate the ball?
Yeah, he was in great position. They threw it, I think, 2 plays before, and he got his head around and did a really nice job. On the next one, we talk about lean and locate. If you can lean on the guy, locate. If you can't lean on him, play and turn into the man. And so we think he could have cut him off there and leaned and locate. He had a great interception in practice today, which was in the same exact situation. You love to see that when guys, make a mistake, they get coached by their position coach, then they go out and correct it. That's the learning process. So, we know Beanie will be in great position next time he gets that opportunity.
Joe, your defense didn't allow New Mexico State into Minnesota territory till the fourth quarter. Did you feel that the guys kind of turned it up to get the shutout?
It isn't necessarily anything that we talked about. They created a few plays. We had a pass interference, and then they caught the ball over our head. And I think the guys at any point, we always talk about response in terms of wherever the ball was placed. If there's a takeaway or turnover and the ball's on the plus side of the field, if they drive the length of the field, we go for it and we don't get it, and now the ball ends up whatever it is. When we get into those situations, those are 4-point play situations. And what that means is like if we get a stop there, we force them to a field goal. If they get, first downs, that could end up being the difference in being a touchdown. So we always want to hold them to field goals. Now, you get a takeaway, and that was a great individual play by Terrell Smith with leaning, locating, finding the ball, and laying out, which was a great job by him, demonstrating some really good ball skills and confidence there. Then you get to stop and give up no points. But, it wasn't so much just about the shutout. It was just about, like, that series. Our goal every series is to get the ball back for the offense.
Time for 1 or 2 more for Coach.
What's the biggest area of your defense that you want to see a jump from week 1 to week 2?
I think just the overall execution of the game plan, which I've touched on a couple times. And, within each game plan, there's hundreds of details. And we want to see those things get executed better this week than last week. And, sometimes the casual observer doesn't necessarily notice all those hundreds of details that go into a game plan, but we do. And that's what we value. And that's what our players value. And that's what our football program values. So, from week 1 to week 2, we just want to see us execute that better. And then each week, if we can get better at executing the game plan, then we feel like we'll get to the end of the season, we'll have improved, and that's our goal.